Okay. Rick, tell me about your feelings about this tour as it's progressing.
Well, it's an ongoing thing since last May. We started out with the Medicine Man record, came out last May, and we started very shortly after that, and it was all through the summer and right through the fall and the winter, and then we took a break, and now we're back out again. So we've been out, probably be out for a little bit longer, and then we're going to call it quits. And right now we're doing some new material, and hope to be back in the studio soon, to do some more recording.
I'm interested in how your father, Shorty Medlocke, influenced your musical career. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, when you grow up with a guy that's in music, all his life, then basically I was around music all my life. He had bands all the time, and used to play. I had a lot of bluegrass, Delta blues bands, Delta blues music, and that's what I was raised in and grew up on. So when you're in that kind of influence, it automatically influences you, period. There wasn't a day, like all during the week, at our house, when they used to have rehearsals and stuff, they'd be at rehearsals sometimes 4 and 5 days a week, so I grew up listening to music constantly, And so that had a big influence on it. I mean, he taught me the feel for music, not only how to play, but the actual feeling for music, that goes into it. So I guess you could say he was the major inspiration in getting into music, period.
Can you tell me about your Native American heritage and specifically what nation you belong to?
Yeah, my dad is a Sioux Indian. My dad comes from the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, which was really cool because we just played not too far from there last night, and I wish I could have got over to see some of the people, but I couldn't. But he was born on the Rosebud Reservation. He's a full-blooded Sioux Indian, and my mom, it's got a little bit of Indian in her, but she's mostly French and English. And I take a lot of pride in it. I'm very, very into what's going on with the Native Americans and Indians, and I've always have. I mean, it's not like it's all of a sudden now, all of a sudden jumped up in me, and hey, I'm really all for it. I've been this way ever since I was really young because I was raised in a very old-fashioned, very traditional way, and raised to be proud of what you were, So I am, I mean, I might not be full-blooded, but my dad is, and my ma is part of it, and I feel like, the part of me is, and I take a lot of pride in it. I would like to see things kind of come along for the Indians. I mean, I think it's about high time that they started getting the recognition and the media attention that that they've so long needed, and I'm glad to see them getting into government and into politics, and stuff like that, because that's what they really need to do. I mean, my own father, he right now, he's doing well in business for himself, which is really great, and so I'm really happy for him in that sense because he really come up and he really fought really hard to get into a business of his own, and I'm really happy he did, but I'm proud of what I am, and I don't try to hide it. I've got I ended up getting a new tattoo last year of an Indian warrior over here on this arm, and I had an eagle on this arm, and everybody's like, well, what is that? And I said, well, it's a part of me, it's the freedom and it's the Indians and it goes hand in hand, it's all in one, and that's the way I am. I'm just I'm a free guy. I'm kind of like one of the last warriors down the road, travel all over the United States all year long, and I feel like I'm one of the last maybe renegade outlaws, running up and down the highway.
What was your first definitive success in the music industry?
Well, actually, the very first part of it, say success, I would say, came in 1979 with the release of the Strikes album. I mean, that was the album that really put the band over, nationally, and we had hits off of that record, with Howie Song and Train Train and, Wish 'Em Well and stuff like that, And I think that in 79, it had been a long time for us. We'd had 2 other albums out previously before then in 76 and 77. No, I'm sorry, 75 and 76, and that would be the No Reservations Flying High album. And they didn't do anything. They came out and fell short, And all of a sudden, then I had the album out before the Strikes album. I was playing on the Leonard Skinner's album, which is called Leonard Skinner's First and Last, which came out after their plane disaster, and that album was actually cut in 71 through 72. and they brought it out after the plane crash, and they were going to bring it out anyway, but the way things consequently happened, they came out with it after the Street Survivors thing came out, and that whole thing, kind of went awry, you know what I'm saying? And so Success came in that form as being a writer on 4 of the songs on that record, and, being the vocalist on 2 of the songs, actually, and doing the backgrounds, and I did the drums, and I did did some of the guitars, and, different things like that. But Success came in that, but I really wasn't actually, at that time, then a part of the band, But, and then in '79, when the Strikes album came out, boom, all of a sudden it was like, Blackfoot did it, and we were like really flipped, and it was like all that hard work for all those years together, 10 years together, had finally paid off, and so,
Pay my dues.
Yeah, pay my dues, exactly. Yeah.
Did you experience any prejudice early in your career?
I've been asked that before, and not really. Never ran up against really, what you say, I say, prejudice. There is a lot of, I guess, there's a lot of prejudice in this world as far as against bands, maybe because they're, maybe because they're an all-black band or, or an all-Indian band or whatever, But we never really ran up against it. The only thing we ever ran up against was things like, you go into restaurants somewhere out in Oklahoma or somewhere, and it says, no blacks, Indians or Chinese allowed in this restaurant and all that stuff. You ran up against, things like that, but not really in the music industry. I never experienced any of that. No.
Where do you feel your largest following geographically was?
Oof, that'd be really hard to say, because at the time we were having hits, all over the nation, we were popular, and in Europe, we were very, very popular in Europe, and I would really say it was really kind of even Steven, because the band was headlining, at the height of the band, we headlined all over the world. We did a world tour on the Marauder tour, which we had Def Leppard as the opening act, and which was a great experience. Now to see the guys, now, I'm really happy for them. It's great that they've achieved the things that they have achieved. I'm sorry to see that some of their members have, lost their lives and lost limbs, as they say, but those things happen, But we were actually, the band was actually popular basically everywhere. Really no one certain area. And everybody says, oh, I bet you guys are like, popular in the South. Well, yeah, we were, but we were just as popular in the Northeast or, the West or Midwest or Southwest or whatever, And it was the same all over, really.
I've heard about your interview in Guitar Magazine during the Marauder era around 1981. I've not had the chance to read it. Could you tell me what you revealed in that interview?
Well, really, it was one of those interviews where, first of all, I had been voted, I think I came in, I believe in that issue or before then was the poll of that year, and I think I'd been voted best new guitarist or something of that year, and then all of a sudden they had the interview with the band, and it was kind of interesting because really kind of surprised me of getting something like that, because there's so many great guitarists, at the time, out. But and then we did the interview, and it was really kind of a standard thing, It was really kind of a thing where you reveal your past and what you're into, and in the future, what you hope to get into. But it was kind of cool. It was really cool to see myself a guitar player. I still have that issue too, by the way, and it was cool. Pat Metheny was on the cover of it, so that was cool.
What was your involvement in the Southern rock movement, and specifically your part with the Lynyrd Skynyrd Band? Could you continue on that?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing. I think the Southern rock movement was really kind of an innocent thing. It just happened, It was it just all of a sudden was there. And what was really kind of cool is that we happened to be there in it, and there was a lot of musicians floating around Jacksonville, and they got together, and all of a sudden, you had Lynyrd Skynyrd, you had Blackfoot, you had the Allman Brothers, you had whoever, and all these bands were making it coming out of the South, It's too bad the things that happened with Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I hated seeing that, because I lost some friends, some very good friends. But, things have to go on. You keep going and striving to get what you want, and the whole Southern rock thing kind of is, they say, is a dead issue. And I think that it's only a dead issue in the minds of, I guess, the corporate world out here as we know it. You know what I'm saying? But in a lot of people's mind, it's not really that dead. You know, it's still a feel. It's still a thing that's there, and I'm still very much a part of it. You know, maybe it's taking on a new face. Maybe it's taking on a more of a thing that's happening in country music right now rather than in the AOR circuit of rock. You know. Maybe it's taking on, maybe the Garth Brooks today, that's the reason why he's so popular, or maybe that's why Dwight Yoakam is so big, or that's why Hank Williams Jr. is so big, or whoever, you know. Maybe that's the Southern rock, I don't know, you know. But I just go where the music takes me, you know. I don't really try to think about what I'm, you know, basically a formula to write and writing just any particular way. I just write. And if it comes out Southern rock, it comes out Southern rock. It's really a lot of blues influence, you know, which is my roots. So.
Shorty used to jam with you on stage. He had a certain shuffle. Can you tell me about it?
Oh, the rabbit dance, you mean? Yeah, he was such a character, man. He had a lot of things that he did like that. I mean, it was, yeah, you know, he used to come out on stage and play Train with us and Rattlesnake Rock and Roller and the Fox Chase and stuff, you know. And it was cool to have him out there, and he used to get down on the floor and do this thing called the rabbit dance, which he got him down on all fours and did this little skipping kind of thing around, you know, which was hilarious, you know. But he was quite an entertainer himself, you know, and it was good to have him out at such an age like that. I used to introduce him as the world's oldest rock star, you know, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
How did the Fox Chase song come together?
Came together. He always had this little piece on the harmonica, which we had on the record, and I just formulated a song around it. You know, I just wrote a song around the whole thing. You know, so it was kind of cool. Out chasing the girls, foxes. You know, as they say.
Shorty's version was actually going. Did he go hunting with dogs?
Yeah, his version of it was a little bit different than mine, but it was kind of different but the same. You know what I'm saying?
Is there any live Blackfoot performances on video that has or will be released to the public?
You know, we've got we've got several videos that was cut live over in Europe. We did a lot of live stuff over in Europe, and I think there's a few from over here. I'm not sure if they're ever going to be released to the public. Atlantic Records has control over that, and maybe sometimes they'll release them one day. I don't know.
When is the next album expected for release?
Sometime later on this year, what I'm hoping after the summer, you know, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Any major changes in equipment? If so, how has it affected your guitar performances?
No, I'm still using old Marshalls, and you know, I guess they say you can't teach I'd hate to say old dog because I don't think I'm an old dog, but they say you can't teach somebody new tricks. But I've tried a lot of different equipment, man, a lot of different amps, a lot of different guitars, and I keep coming back to old Marshalls and old vintage guitars. And it works for me, you know what I'm saying? And I like that, that's it.
What kind of music do you like to listen to when not performing?
Well, that's a good one. Well, I like to listen to a lot of different array of musics. I listen to a lot of Spanish flamenco guitar stuff, like the Gypsy Kings and a lot of guitars, you know, flamenco guitar players, you know. On the other hand, I'll go from one extreme. I like listening to people like Soundgarden and Nirvana and stuff like that. And then on the other spectrum, I go all the way and I listen to country music. I listen to a lot of country music stuff. And on the other hand, I go all the way and I listen to a lot of your, you know, a lot of like rock stuff, older rock stuff, and I listen to a lot of like classical orchestrational stuff. I listen to everything, you know. I guess the reason why I don't listen to opera is because maybe I don't understand it, you know, and I guess if I understood it, I guess I would listen to it, but I can appreciate it for what it is. But you know, I listen to everything, you know. I don't close my mind off to just one certain thing.
How many albums does your present contract with Nelly Records have?
Well, it was a one album off deal. We can, you know, that was basically it. And right now we're touting with some major labels right now. So, you know, we're going to see how that takes place, and we'll see what happens.
What age did you begin playing guitar, and tell me a memorable early experience relating around it?
Oh boy, that's so funny. Well, first of all, I started when I was about 5 and a half, almost 6 years old. And I used to play left-handed instead of, you know, this way. And then everybody kept teasing me because I played that way, so I switched this way, you know. And I